Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to TMI's Foundation Day celebration. A very special welcome to those joining us virtually. I'm Niharika. I'm the Chief Business Officer at TMI Network. Today we mark 33 years of innovation and impact. And what better way to celebrate than by focusing on a cause that's been close to our heart, youth employment. Sharing a brief anecdote about how TMI's commitment to youth employment began. This is a story from our founder, T. Muralidharan, or TMD as he's fondly called. So this journey with employment and scaling began in 2009, not in a boardroom, but in a dusty village called Dwasa in Jaipur. Imagine the scene. Midday sun, a conversation with the village sarpanch, and a shared dream of empowering young people in the village with jobs. Graduation is the answer, our founder had declared, brimming with city optimism. The village sarpanch was a little skeptical. He then called over two brothers, both graduates from the village, Gangaram and his elder sibling. He told TMD, please get them jobs. But there was a surprise here. They weren't working, they were waiting. Upon probing, TMD realized that their choice in their graduation majors, which was BA Political Science in Hindi, wasn't driven by passion for the subject, but because of bus schedules. Because the first bus to Jaipur town leaves at 10 a.m. in the morning and leaves for the village back at 4 p.m. And the only course that was available at Jaipur University was a BA in Political Science. The kicker, this, when TMD inquired with them about the whereabouts, about their friends and families, what are they doing, where are they working, some of them apparently were engaged in farming and labor, but our brothers here refused menial work or labor. They were graduates, remember? So this wasn't just the story of these two brothers, it was India's stories. Millions graduating with lofty expectations, but zero skills that can match their employability. So we're churning graduates faster than creating jobs for them. TMD realized that India has a passing out at around 5 million people every year, but there were hardly 500,000 jobs every year for these grads. That's when the spark ignited. The problem wasn't degrees, but the disconnect between them and the skill set for employability. TMD joined hands with NSD, and that is when TMI E2E was formed. E2E stands for Education to Employment. The mission, bridge the gap, equip these graduates with real-world skills that can get them on a path to meaningful careers. So this wasn't a company, this was a movement. We weren't just training, we were transforming lives. Imagine Gangaram, not stuck at the bus stop, but using his skills to soar. That's the power of skilling, the fuel that drives our journey. That's why today on our Foundation Day, we celebrate not just years of innovation, but our unwavering commitment to empower young people like Gangaram to unlock their true potential. This is our story. It's just a beginning. Join us as we continue to bridge the gap and pave the way for a future where every young person has the skills and opportunity to succeed. Can I now request TMD and the guests to come for the lighting of the lamp?
Krishnan, or BR as we call him, is the Group CEO of TMI. Imagine 300 passionate minds united under BR's vision, crafting cutting-edge solutions for the evolving world of work. CNK Management, TMI Network, and TMI E2E Academy. Each success story bears his fingerprints. But BR's influence extends far beyond boardrooms. He is a champion for change, collaborating with powerhouses like GIZ, UNICEF, and the World Bank to transform the lives of over 1.4 million Anganwadi workers, who in turn impact 16 million children. That's an impact that you can measure not just in numbers, but in empowered communities. BR is a leader who doesn't just manage, he inspires. Here's a video from a jet-lagged BR, all the way from Atlanta.
Good day, everyone. Unfortunately, I'm missing this as I'm on a business trip to the US that could not be rescheduled. I would like to welcome and thank every one of the assembled guests, especially the Honorable Minister for IT and Industry, Shri Sridhar Babu, esteemed speakers, friends of TMI, and assembled guests. Thank you for being with us here on this very special day, the 33rd anniversary of TMI. Today is a very special day for us as we mark one more year of TMI Group being there for our esteemed corporate customers, delivering value to them through a range of HR services. Also being there for the thousands of candidates that we connect with every day, trying to move them ahead in their careers. And the thousands of trainees whom we start off every month on their roles or move them ahead on the productivity curve. And also the lakhs of learners as we partner multilateral agencies that include the World Bank, WHO, GIZ, the Asian Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, among others, and many more besides government ministries, departments, and institutions across India, East Africa, and Central Asia. Last, and perhaps not the least, the thousands of beneficiaries that we train and place using funds from esteemed CSR sponsors that include Microsoft, Manthan Foundation, Syngenta, Cyient, among many others. I would like to thank every one of them for staying with TMI and allowing us to grow with them over the years. As I look back at the year that has gone by, the first full year post-COVID, it's been a year of recovery for us, especially from Q3 onwards. During the year, we have reinvented ourselves and recast our vision, mission, values to be aligned with the TMI 2.0 that we envisage, which will take us from TMI 33 to TMI 50. TMI 50 is a little ambitious. Surely Murli and I are not going to be around for that, but our one downs and their one downs are all going to be there, and I'm sure they will celebrate a grand TMI at 50 event. But perhaps I would like to set a less ambitious target. Add a 3 to the 33 that's already done and define what is TMI at 36. So TMI at 36, what is it likely to be? I would like to define this in 3 dimensions. I think the first dimension would be growth, like how any organization would measure itself. So we could perhaps be a 500 crore company by 2026-27. That's 3 years from now, from the 170 odd crores turnover that we would perhaps end this year with. The second dimension would be impact. Impact in terms of people placed, beneficiaries, helped, countries that we operate in, the number of staff, government staff perhaps that we impact on, number of countries that we operate in. Could be many of these dimensions. We currently do about 1,500 hires a month. I think perhaps it would be around 5,000 hires a month. And this automatically means from processing something like 50,000 candidates a month now, we would move to about processing 200,000 candidates a month to get those 5,000 hires. In our staffing business, perhaps we would move from the 5,000 and odd people that we have on our payroll to over 20,000. In the trainees that we process every year, between 60 to 80,000 a year today, I can see a significant growth there to go to maybe over 300,000 per year. In terms of geographies, definitely Africa is something that we would expand upon, in Central Asia, but I also see, especially after this current trip, of a TMI US operations where we could be offering both RPO and content outsourcing. There is a huge opportunity out here, and I'm sure TMI will be doing that. And again, in terms of the beneficiaries from the thousands that we do today, perhaps we would hit. I also see that by 26, 27, we would be impacting on at least 100,000 beneficiaries using funds from our CSR donors. Mention that I would perhaps define in TMI 36 is the way we operate. It's increasingly a phygital world. And the last 3 days at the ATD conference in Los Angeles that I've attended, the only mantra that I've continuously heard about is AI, embed AI everywhere. And I've become a full convert too. Not to reduce the manpower that we would deploy, that would not make sense, but use it to expand the capability of our staff to do far more, much more efficiently, is what I would perhaps consider. 3 years ago, we got onto the RPA bandwagon, and today we run 100 plus bots that help us take out the drudge work from the recruiting team and the staffing team of ours. But we got to go far more, and AI would perhaps help us do that. We definitely can see a future that in the next year, and as we move forward, it will become more intense, that AI would be there to help our recruiters process many more candidates. Some of their tasks will be taken over by the bots so that they can focus on more value-adding tasks. Similarly, in our content team, there could be bots that help our instructional designers and content creators, even our graphic artists, create images so that they can then build on top of that. They'll not get replaced because ultimately that human intervention is required, but initial heavy lifting could be done by bots. I can easily see AI helping our trainers manage the virtual instructor training much better and engaging with the training audience. I can see that we could have, and we will definitely deploy AI-driven chatbots that help our trainees go up the performance curve very quickly. Some sort of a job assistant that's available on their phone just in time that they can consult with. So every aspect of the operation that TMI does, I see that there would be some AI embedded and perhaps some RPA embedded. We could visualize that we would perhaps be the front runner in India for RPA and AI embedded HR services so that we deliver best value all our customers, client, corporate, government, multilateral agencies, individual learners, and the beneficiaries. That's the future that I see by the time we're definitely TMI 36. I would like to sum up the third dimension that I talked about as machine and then man is the way that we would operate when we are TMI at 36. Thank you all for a patient hearing. Wish you a fabulous evening out there, and thank you once again for assembling here to be with us on this important day, TMI 33.
Can I request TMD to join, please? Mohan Garu, Narendra Garu, Vikram Garu.
T. Muralidharan, or TMD, as we call him, is a serial entrepreneur who ignites careers. He is an author of 2 best-selling books on careers, an independent journalist, and a freshly minted lawyer. For 3 decades, TMI Group has thrived under his leadership, placing over 100,000 managers and skilling 200,000 executives. He is a past FICCI chairman and the current advisor to the governor of Rajasthan on employment. TMD once said, and I quote, "Without government scholarship and very subsidized education, many of us in our generation would not have completed our IIT and IIM educations. The people of India funded us. We must return the favor." And this is something that makes me very emotional, that I get to work for a man like him. Who better to speak about the Indian youth employment, their challenges, and the solutions? TMD, I invite you to share your thoughts.
I think the purpose of this meeting is to focus on India's single largest problem, in my mind. The single largest problem is youth unemployment. There are many, many thoughts come in my mind as I stand here and think about it, because I've traveled extensively in India. We have hired people in very, very small towns. We conducted job fairs in UP once, I remember. And job fair was about 500 jobs, 50,000 people came. And some of them came with guns to the job fair. So when I asked in Deoria district of UP, I asked the SP, he said, sir, in this place there are no jobs. There are a lot of graduates, the largest number of graduates passing out in UP is from this area, but there are no jobs. So they're getting frustrated. So I think somewhere from my heart, I sometimes feel that we are not giving enough attention to the problem. So when we are deciding on the theme for today, what we want to think about our future, I said all of us in this room, including the speakers, the biggest issue we want to hear from you, we want to participate, collaborate, and create some solution for the youth of India. I've been doing a lot of research. I've been publishing a lot of material on this. So I'm going to share some significant data to set the context of what is the scenario on the ground. Many of us can't see it in D-Hub. It's a beautiful building, and it's a lovely evening. But the reality is something I'm going to spell it out. Some of you on the table, we have given you some important statistics. Problem in all storytelling is that sometimes the story hijacks the facts. And that's why even though she told the Gangaram story, how we started, so there's a large number of statistics is not known to all of you. And that's the first attempt I'm going to make. And thereafter, I'm going to invite our speakers also to share their thoughts, and later on we'll open it up for all of us to contribute. So you're not here as a guest, you're coming as a participant. And fortunately, we have extra time today, and therefore we'll use it for getting some collaboration. And we'll take down notes in what you say, and later on we'll go back to the drawing board and see how TMI can work with each of you or together to solve this problem. The voice is not coming clearly. Okay, I'll come closer, yeah. I think first I want to talk about the dimension, how big is this problem? We all hear anecdotal stories, I don't get a driver, I don't get a plumber at home. This is the storytelling we hear. But I want to give you some quick statistics. We say India is a youth country. Our median age is about 28. And 65% of our population, or 130 million people, are less than 35 years. Out of that, majority of the children have dropped out of school. Our school dropout ratios are still extremely high, 60% dropout in class 10. And 70% of the children are still studying in government schools. And you know, one of the challenges, I've been to Cyient. Cyient has done a fantastic job in corporatizing the schools, especially the government schools. But if you look at the government school as a whole category, there are a lot of stories published. Recently, there was also a research report published about the quality of education in schools in India. So if 70% of the children are in government schools, 60% drop out in class 10, now you can imagine what the quality of the youth that we have. And I think Ravi talked about AIML, and there is very clear indication that the traditional jobs that we have in India, especially in service sector, will be significantly lost. There will be a significant reduction in job roles which are rule-based, jobs which are largely creative job-based. A lot of things are changing. And in this context, even AIML cannot help because many of them are not even qualified to class 10. On an average, we have 17 million people every year who coming and look for non-farm sector jobs, 17 million. And if you ask the question, how many jobs have we created in the last so many years? Well, you'll be surprised to know the best estimate is 5 million, and the lowest is about 3 million average. So now you can imagine 17 million people, 5 million come out of farm sector because farm sector agriculture is not viable, they're coming into non-farm sector. But 12 to 13 million people are not finding jobs in India. So this second problem, first problem is the supply is very poor. The second interesting fact is the demographics are working against the Indian youth. What do you mean by that? If you have any scenario where the supply is 17 million and demand is 3 million, the intersection of supply and demand is compensation. Many of us in this room will tell stories about how we are not able to get people, but we did a research a few years ago with a very large 3 or 4 million data points about what is the salary of average person in India. Over a 12-year period between 1999 and 2011, the study conducted and it came out with a very astonishing conclusion. The conclusion was an average factory worker's compensation, net of inflation, declined over a 12-year period for 50% of the industries. Now you can imagine, the compensation is the biggest factor for most of the youth in India. Our cost of living has gone up dramatically, all of us know, but the compensation has remained stagnant. Even today, even for graduates, the biggest problem is compensation. I'll talk a little more about it. But unfortunately, the so-called demographics, which is supposed to be, we talk about demographic dividend, is actually working against the youth of India. That's the second point I want to make. The most interesting aspect of this also, rural women. Historically, we used to believe rural women are working in the farm, they're working in small jobs in the villages. They're dropping out of the job market. They're getting out of the workforce. And urban India, the women are what we call labor force participation is falling or remaining constant. So women are not getting into the job roles. So on one side, the government of India is very actively pushing more and more graduate girls to come in, what we call a male-female ratio. In the colleges, it's almost 50%. But the girls are studying but not taking a job. Now this is a big problem because in the country we are creating more and more graduates who are aspirational. They come with a lot of expectation, but when they leave the colleges, the reality is very stark for them. The last portion is I want to talk a lot more about youth and Telangana and graduates. First is about graduates. As it was mentioned earlier, I was doing calculations one, how many people are passing out of colleges in India? How many from, everybody knows MBA colleges, maybe 1 lakh or 2. Engineering colleges, 6 lakh, 7 lakh people, and that is declining. But if you calculate all the BE, BA, B.Ed, ITIs, graduate diploma holders, we are approximately 5 to 6 million passing out every year. And we did an exercise to find out what are the graduate jobs. See, for example, if you ask a question, many jobs a 12th class pass can do. Why would a graduate do? Most of the graduates want to do graduate jobs. So we have calculated how many graduate jobs are we creating. Traditionally, 3 sectors only create the maximum number of graduate jobs. Number 1, IT sector, which has been our savior for this country. The second sector is BFSI. We are in the sector, we produce a lot of jobs for graduates, and that's how we specialize in graduate employment or unemployment. And the third is healthcare and pharma. Together, over a period of 7 or 8 years, average job creation has not been more than 500,000. So here you have 5 million, and the job for graduates is less than 500,000. So now this is the stark reality of the numbers for us. The other point I want to highlight is about the strategy of the government. The government keeps saying that increase the GDP. As the GDP grows, the wealth will get distributed and people will become happy. So a lot of research has been going on. World Bank has been doing a lot of research and asking what is called employment elasticity. Employment elasticity is the relationship between employment and GDP. You'll be surprised to know the employment elasticity recently was negative. In other words, as GDP grows, employment is not going to go. In fact, it is lower than many countries in the developing world, which is where the employment elasticity is 0.3, we are minus 0.11. So therefore, this really opens up a big reality. Even today in Telangana, I'm sure the minister is not there, but I told him the same thing. There's a lot of excitement about big industries coming in, but the big industries are not creating jobs. On an average, it takes about 5 to 6 crores of investment to produce one job in the organized sector. And you can imagine what the kind of work MSMEs have been doing in India. So effectively, what we are saying is the current strategy of government of pushing GDP growth, getting more and more GST collections, these are all stories about GDP. It's a good story. We want country to flourish. But what it's doing is not creating jobs for the people. What's the consequence? First consequence is government is forced to do dole. Many state governments are looking at how to keep the graduates happy, and they're willing to pay some money. But that's not a solution because you're making more and more people unemployable. The only way to make people employable is to give them a job. Whatever we do, skilling, anything we do, unless they find a job where they're accountable for some outcome, unless they get a discipline of going to work on a daily basis, unless they focus on how they can contribute, they are not going to learn anything. So unfortunately, even the skill movement in India, which I am very much part of, I've been telling the ministers in skill, please do not focus on skilling outside the job. How do we get more people to job? And the only place where they can find jobs is the MSME sector. For example, one of our suggestions recently, state government has asked us to give some suggestions on what should we do. I said, first create a ministry of MSME and employment. This is what we need. Obviously, industries minister will continue to handle the heavy industries and big industries. Kalraj Mishra started in 2014. It was the first time Mr. Modi announced that MSME cabinet minister rank was created. Tamil Nadu today has a minister for MSME. I feel in Telangana, we should really focus on MSME and employment cabinet minister. Why? Because many things can happen once somebody puts a focus in the MSME. For example, I'll give you one example. In the MSME sector, the largest employment is coming from micro and small industry, not from medium size. But these two industries really require funds. Government of India has announced a Mudra scheme. They recently published some data on how many people have benefited. But if you look at Telangana, how many people are benefiting from Mudra loans? Whose job it is to encourage more and more our small and micro entrepreneurs to get access to government funding? It's a state government job. So the MSME ministry, if you form in the government, state government, there is a very good possibility we will be able to encourage our SME sector to access government funds, encourage them to become more digital. But today the focus on SMEs are very poor. The last one is about graduate unemployment in Telangana. This is one of the shocking statistics which I read. In India and even in Telangana, the unemployment rate for graduates who are 21 to 25 is 44%. 44% is the unemployment rate among people who are 21 to 25. It drops when it goes down to 28, 29 to 22%, and it drops to 2 to 3% as they cross 35. This is a very important statistic. What the statistics tells you is that all the graduates are waiting for government jobs. They are not looking for private sector jobs. That's why you say crores of people applying. So they wait till they exhaust that possibility and then get into private sector jobs. Any job they take, any kind of jobs. So what we have also created is high expectation government will provide jobs. But you'll be surprised the total number of jobs state government has, total number of employees or the sanctioned job roles are only 5 lakh people for a state of 3.5 crores. So anyway, what I'm trying to highlight to you is that this problem is our problem. It's not mine. It's everybody's problem here. And this room today, if I get some at the end of today's meeting, all of us can come together and see how we can contribute. How do we take ownership for this problem of the nation? And in whatever way, maybe money is not an important, get involved, contribute, write about it, put pressure on politicians to make them understand the SME problem. If we can do something collectively together, I think today's function would have achieved its objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Shri Vikram Garu is a partner in M. Anandam & Co. Chartered Accountants since 1980. He was earlier on the boards of 2 nationalized banks. Presently, he is the chairman of ASM Technologies. He is also on the boards of 8 companies, including Time and Facebook India. He is the chairman of MV Foundation, a pioneering institution on issues of child labor, and has mobilized more than 1.2 million children to schools. He is also the chairman of Sahakara Mitra Samstha, which works with farmer groups in Andhra Pradesh. Sir, could I please invite you to the podium to please share your thoughts on the topic? Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Murali, for inviting me to be on the panel. In the first place, I think there's a mistake you made because I don't know whether my skills are fit for this job. I'll try. It's really an honor to be here on this panel and such distinguished people on the dais. And when he asked me to speak on my experiences from the NGO sector, so I would like to, in a short speech, tell you my experiences of running 3 NGOs which I run also from the point of view of skills and development and employment and what I saw across the country. I am the chairman of a foundation called MV Foundation. Most of you would know my sister, Shanta Sinha, but last 10 years I've been running this foundation. And we work across the country on a variety of geographies and communities, mobilizing children to schools. And we are now working extensively in very difficult areas, Dantewada, Bihar, Kashmir, Assam. So my experience, and our previous experience in 30 years when we worked extensively in Rangareddy. So the first observation I would like to make is that the amount of enthusiasm which we find amongst the youth in this country to do a good job, and what more could they deliver if only they had a little extra skill. I think that's the first thing which I noticed, that at a peak of the work across the country, we had almost about 30,000 youth volunteers working across the country. And all of them went through small training sessions, but were, I would call them experts in mobilizing children to schools. So when someone tells me that our foundation, even I'm guilty of this, when they read about our foundation, and then they say that we have mobilized 1.2 million children to school, I think that's a wrong metric. The metric should be that we have mobilized 30,000 volunteers across the country who we have trained to mobilize children to school. And that should be the metric. But somehow that doesn't appeal to the donors, to the CSR funders. It doesn't appeal to them when I say, I want you to fund our volunteers. I want you to fund their salaries. I want you to understand that they have skills, and their skills are specialized. I feel it is an insult to the kind of work these volunteers are doing when someone tells them that they're doing NGO work. Because to get a child to school in an unknown community is a technical job. There is a protocol involved. There is a lot of understanding of the community. There is a way of tackling the parents, the way of tackling the community, there's a way of tackling the teachers, there's a way of enrolling them into schools, there's a way of monitoring it. This is as complicated as writing code. So when someone says you're doing very noble charitable work, it is an insult to the amount of technology that goes into getting the child to school. That's the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that these 30,000 people are somehow unique in this country. And there are many institutions like that which have trained these youth to be able to do a specialized job and skill. Somehow in our minds, we do not think of that as a job or a skill. So there is a need to redefine what we are looking for in this youth. The second thing I would like to say is in the context of the work in our foundation. Apart from it being a complicated job to get the child to school, they also convey a strong message. The message they convey is, if someone like them, typically between the age groups 19 to 25, can do this job and can get children to school, it is something sustainable for succeeding generations to come to leave that training skills in the community and to have successor teenagers who are getting into the same stream and to train them and to get them into the mainstream. I find it, especially in the work which we are now doing in Bihar, that our 5-year-old, 6-year-old volunteers who are with us are experts in training the new recruits much better than what we can do. It shows how much they can absorb in a new skill which they themselves did not have about 5-6 years ago. That leaves me a lot of hope. The hope it leaves is that I think we make a mistake by underestimating how much they can absorb. The second thing is that how much they can transmit what they have absorbed. And that training skill, which I find in my volunteers, is what I would like to present to this group. I would like to say that it's not my 30,000 volunteers who are there. There are at least, my estimate, at least 3 million such people in this country who are doing tremendous work in this NGO field and whose work is not measured by the kind of input and time they are giving, but it is measured in terms of the output which they give. When people ask me, how many children have you mobilized to school? Nobody has asked me this question. None of my donors have asked me this question. How many volunteers have you trained? We have the country champion sitting here on software. So I'm sure he understands that when he says that I have 10,000 people working, 20,000 people working, that is what the treasure is. And which is much more than whatever, I don't know your turnover, sir. And I think that is much more valuable than the 5,000 crore or 10,000 crores. To measure training, to measure volunteer training, we call them volunteers, we pay them, but to measure it in terms of themselves as persons is to respect their skill. And there are many such skills in the market. This is the first thing. The second NGO I work with is we work with weavers. I'm limiting this to only the NGO work. We work with weavers, and we work with weaving communities across South India. They're mostly handloom weavers. And what I notice is that when people talk about handloom weaving and people talk about weavers, we're talking about the declining trend of weavers to continue in their profession. That is a common articulation. The common articulation is that handloom doesn't have a future, the number of weavers are coming down. But today, the second largest employer after agriculture is still the weaving community. There are still approximately 2.8 million weavers in this country, and that figure is growing. Actually, it's not coming down. So there is something happening here. And I would say what is happening here is their ability to skill themselves, either as culturally as a succession, because the father becomes a weaver, the son becomes a weaver, or because market demands what they are making. There is a demand for the market. So how about they skilling themselves? What is happening in that sector? What is happening in that sector is that they're able to innovate themselves to produce a variety of products, which frankly, if you ask me, I have not seen that originality in the powerloom sector. And these weaver community, these 28 lakh weavers in the country, have tremendous skill, tradition, culture, and the ability to sustain themselves. So what do we need to do there to promote those jobs, to promote those weavers, is to reskill them and to give them an identity that they are not just weavers, but they are just holders of knowledge. Just like how I would like my volunteers in my MV Foundation to be respected for their ability to mobilize children to school, I would like the weaver to be respected not for the product which he is giving, but for the fact that he has the skill to make that product. And that is not an ordinary thing. I have met weavers who can do a mathematical calculation in their head without the need of a computer of a complex grid which has 10 different designs and which is a grid of 1024 by 1024. And they can do it in their head. So there is something which is going on in their skill and in their training to be able to deliver a complex design and to crack the design. So what is the challenge we have here? Is that we have to work on that skill and see how have they have acquired that skill and how to nurture that skill. And here we have a sector where we think that these 28 million weavers can easily double in about 5 years' time, given inputs of their understanding their knowledge and their skill. So we have a separate NGO which we are working on, where we promote the knowledge of the weaver, not the product of the weaver. Because whenever we talk about handloom, we say what a lovely product, what a great design. No one talks about the weaver. So there is a large community in this country. So my understanding of that community, of the weaving community, is this, that they have a specialized skill. The modern market is a different market. We need many other types of specialized skills. So when the government of India, in its budget, says that they're promoting national highways, there's a lovely highway in which we recently traveled from Delhi to Lucknow. And it is a highway built by the National Highway Authorities of India. They spent 30,000 crores on this one. Frankly, it's been a great experience traveling in that highway. But if you want me to choose priorities, has it built jobs? Has it created jobs the way we wanted to create? Because we measure the 30,000 crore as an investment in this one. I would like that to have been 300 village roads built in a period of a year. Because if you build village roads, then you're promoting local communities. It might sound very Gandhian, but I still think that it is still possible that if you build rural infrastructure, then you will stop migration from rural to urban communities. And when you build rural infrastructure, you are promoting rural skills of ability to build roads, lay roads, designing, local architects, whatever it is. The last thing I would like to say, I don't want to take much time, I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion on this, is that the government has a wonderful tool in the form of Manrega. Manrega demand is actually going up. So these are very, very low skill, low quality jobs. But here we have access to lakhs of workers who are demanding work. And look at how much you can do with them if only you also reskill them. This year, the demand for Manrega work has gone up by at least 20,000 crores. That is because they are not getting employment anywhere else. And they're doing extremely low quality work. So there must be some effort to work with those Manrega workers to build a better road, to build a better dam, to build a better ditch, to build a better lake, to build a better anything. And look at the amount of, look at the kind of opportunity we have in the government's hand, in the private sector hand. I don't believe that I don't believe in the phrase that we have to create jobs. Jobs will follow if you create demand. And if you create demand, the demand will come, in my opinion, the demand now has to come from the tier 2, tier 3, tier 5 cities, and that's where the real demand comes. India has to now concentrate not on urban infrastructure, but on rural infrastructure, concentrate on skills, concentrate on people, concentrate on the lakhs of people who are, in any case, we can, in my experience, will do a little better with a little more skill. I will wait for reactions later. Thank you.
Sri Narendra Garu graduated in chemical engineering from the Manipal Institute of Technology in 1975. He worked in a metal finishing company, for 2.3 years before joining Pragati Offset Private Limited, a commercial printing press started by his father, Sri Prachuri Hanumant Rao, in 1962. Narendra Garu was instrumental in upgrading the press with the latest technologies and building a team that was professional in every way. He is supported by his brother Mahendra, sons Harsha and Hemant, and his niece Swati. Their hard work and keenness to excel has placed Pragati where it is today, amongst the best printers in the world. Sir, could I please invite you to share your thoughts on this topic?
Well by training. So many people of the 2000 have really become so good because of the attitude and aptitude. This will continue, but we need government also to help us to get the right kind of systems. I'm very happy government of Telangana has started giving permissions to the industries to build hostels in the factory. This is very, very important because the minimum wage today when you take somebody is 12,500, 12,600. If you don't provide a living space for them, it's very difficult to survive and continue and learn. So I'm happy that they have done that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Shri Mohan Reddy Garu is the founder chairman of Cyient. He founded and served as executive chairman of Cyient. He joined the DCM group in 1974 and has subsequently worked with HCL and OMC Computers Limited. He was the chairman of NASSCOM from 2014 to 2015 and is a prolific business analyst. Mohan Garu holds a graduate degree in mechanical engineering from the College of Engineering, Kakinada, India, and postgraduate degrees from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and the University of Michigan. He has also received an honorary PhD from the Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad, an honorary DSc from the Andhra University, Visakhapatnam, and Doctor of Science from KL University. Sir, could I please invite you on the dais to share your thoughts, please?
Mr.Vikram, Mr. Narendra, my good friend Murli, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening to all of you. As the cat's already let out of the bag, I'm a stand-in guest today, but given the great amount of relationship that I had to Murli, and equally important is the topics that he put on discussion today never even made me think twice before I said, yes, I will speak. So I need to be a little careful in terms of making sure that I'm very cohesive in what I'm going to share with you this evening. The two topics that people talked about, one is the social responsibility that we have. Vikram talked about his NGO. Mr. Narendra talked about how he's creating jobs. That's one part of it. Or Murli extensively talked about this challenge with youth and employment. Before I get to those two topics, let me first do the ritual of congratulating my good friend, Murli, for successfully running this company for 33 years. A big round of applause. It is becoming difficult. I don't know how many of you realize this. In 1960s, the average age of Fortune 500 companies was 60 years. In 2010, Fortune themselves published that the average age of Fortune 500 companies came down to 20 years. It is predicted now that this year the numbers will be somewhere in the range of about 15 to 16 years. So there are definitely clear indicators the lifespan of companies are shrinking. One could always ask questions why. There could be innumerable number of reasons why it happens. But one reason it certainly makes sure that they live for a long, long time is leadership. And on that count again, let me join my hands to congratulate Murali for the leadership he provides. By strange coincidence, my company too is the same vintage as Murali's company. It can't be more coincidental than this. He incorporated his company on 11th of February 1991. I became an entrepreneur on 28th August 1991. I'm younger to you, junior to you, Murali. And I've also survived for these many years. Survived with a small little difference, of course, that I have the unique distinction of running two publicly traded companies. That's what we spanned out from that modest beginning of 4 engineers in my home on my dining table. Vikram said, he wasn't very sure about how many people I employ or what my revenues are, but being publicly traded companies, I can tell you that we are inching towards $1 billion revenue, and we employ 18,000 people across the world. So the reason we said was leadership makes a difference in terms of making companies survive for a long time. But equally important is, what's the reason why companies are dying so quickly? Many reasons, all right, but one I'll call out is all about the technology. The acceleration of technology that we are seeing so far hasn't been experienced by mankind in the past. I'm so excited about technology, by a strange coincidence back again. In the last 24 hours, I used 2 new gadgets, literally they're gadgets. The first one was the Apple's Virtual Pro, which has got released earlier this month. And I was a little fortunate that somebody bought one for me from US. And the type of features it has and the capabilities it has usability it has, is just amazing. It's virtual reality technology that goes in. So literally a thick pair of glasses is what you're wearing. And you're getting rid of your computer, your TV, your phone, you name it. Everything is just gone out the window. And you don't require anything else except that you're pinching on the screen that comes in. I have a TV at home, which is, I believe, 48 inches or 54 inches, they keep calling it. The TV that I see in front of my eyes is as good as this room, as large as this room. That's what the Virtual Pro shows you. People change from one person, the gadget can be moved from one person to the other person. It automatically calibrates the sight of the next individual to show the right type of pictures for them. I wouldn't have ever imagined this happening. Then in the evening yesterday, I was reading this in one of our internal memos that we started installing the Copilot with Microsoft. I don't know how many of you are using that already. And so I was on travel for last 1 week. So I just got back. So therefore I said, no, it's important that I also get a Copilot on my Microsoft Outlook. And trust me, the excitement that I have in using it is unbelievable. You go to an email, you go to your email Outlook system, you got an email, you just now activate your Copilot, which is activation is nothing but clicking on a button, which is in the corner icon, and then click on the second one saying reply. It gives you a draft reply of what is there, what is to be sent to that particular email you received. How long does it take? 15 seconds. That's the maximum it took for a long email that I wrote. Here is something further it did for me. Then I went and they said, look, there's so many features that are there. So I said, let's look at a few of things that are exciting. It can convert a Word document into a PPT file and a PPT file into a Word document. It does both of them. Not necessarily all the content is yours. It can even source content on its own. So I had, we recently, relevant to this conversation today, did make a release about a skilling project that we have done in rural Telangana, to be more precise, in Mahbub Nagar. I gave this one-page document to, it was opened in in PowerPoint, and then the Copilot was on, and then said, convert into PPT. 10 more seconds, I got 10 slides, absolutely relevant. Trust me, I wouldn't have made one single correction to that particular presentation if I were to do that to press. It was a press release converted to a presentation. So that's the speed of technology. In this scenario of technology, surviving for this long becomes difficult. I'll just make a last comment on that part of, I got 3 parts, let me finish my first part. is by saying that's actually being reflected in what we see as valuation of companies. In, say, 20 years back, the only technology company which figured in the top 10 most valued companies in the world was Microsoft. There's no other company which was there, the top 10. Fast forward 20 years, you now look at what is the most valuable companies in the world. There's only one non-technology company. It's the Apples and the Microsoft and the Googles and the Facebooks and so on and so forth. It goes on. That's the transformation we are going through, and we all need to be aware of that. Let me move on to the second topic, which was about the social impact. As much as I said earlier, we looked at what are the success factors for companies. And we said leadership, and the other thing, the threat that we saw was technology. But let me talk about other success factors for companies, which leads me into society. To me, for a company to be successful, there are 4 pillars which are the stakeholders. One is the customer, the second is the investor, the third is your associate or your employee, and the fourth is the society. And I keep saying that if you neglect even one of them, there's disaster impending. And then one other thing that's very important is these 4 are cross purposes with each other. They're not with unison with each other. Your ability to make sure that you're equitable to all the 4 stakeholders make companies successful. But amongst these 4, the society is a silent spectator. And I think Murli used this word. But for the support and the subsidies, most of us would not have been in this room going to IITs, to the IIMs, to engineering colleges, and so on and so forth. I'll assure you, I'm one of them too, Murli, that I wouldn't have been here too, but for the subsidies and the support that came from the society. So it becomes imperative for every one of us who is successful thereafter to pay back to the society. It is extremely important, we say, the society, though it is very, very dormant, requires that attention. So we took upon ourselves as a company to make sure that we would pay our role. And much before even the rule came in of the CSR, the 2%, I think it came in 2017 or 2016, even 10 years before that, we were trying to spend a sizable amount of our money, 1 to 1.5% of our profits was being spent. I may have a slightly different opinion than Vikram. I believe very strongly in terms of measuring output rather than the input. So therefore, what we did was, and second thing that I also want to do with my support to society or the NGO part of it, is to make sure that you be very focused on what you want to do. Because there's so many initiatives that can be taken in this country. I keep saying it's like a whiteboard with specks of dust which are there are the initiatives like Vikram, maybe a much larger speck of dust, mine is smaller one, Vikram. But these are all small things. But if every one of us join hands, and if all join together, there could be a good picture that will emerge for this nation in terms of what we are doing from the corporate or individuals or institutions to make sure that the society becomes better. So we choose education to start with. We adopted the government schools. We started with 1, 2, 3, it became 38 of them, I believe, are currently under our management. And I can tell you stories after stories. I'm very clear, I should be very conscious that I'm not here for talking for too long, but I'll share you a little bit of insight into what we have done. The insight was that when we walked into these government schools, you'll find something very interesting. We found something very interesting. And that was the girl-child population depleted from class to class as the classes became higher and higher. I feel a little disappointed. Even in this room, we have a small portion of women only, my girl child. And so we went back to this question, which we call it as relentless root cause analysis, RRCA, to say, why is this girl-child population becoming smaller and smaller as the classes become higher and higher? You could find the most mundane thing that could have ever think about. the taps in the washrooms were stolen. There's no water in the washroom, so they're not usable anymore. My little girl child, the moment she understands what is privacy, she has only one option: stop going to school, unless her school was close by. We went back and did the next one. Why are the taps stolen in the schools? The so-called watchman does not do the job. And these were all in semi-urban areas of Hyderabad city. And most of them were encroached. So there's nothing called boundary. Everybody had an access to the school. Everything was their fun and games. I feel sad, but I'll still tell you. The children used to come and sweep the floors in the morning. And what did the children find? I did that one day. Broken beer bottles, used condoms. Is that a child would look for in the morning? We would never allow that to do. So we said first thing that has to happen is build compound walls for the schools. Doesn't matter, if it is illegally occupied, I said I don't want to take legal problems into hand. What we do is whatever we can push back, we'll push back and build the walls. We built the walls. We put our security. We put 2 security guards, which are all the 38 schools have our security right now for 12 hours each. What is the outcome of it? I measured that, Vikram. The outcome is from a situation where we were 15% of the children in any school was girl child. Today we touch the hearts of 20,000 children in 38 schools, and 54% of my children in these schools are girl child. The majority of them are girl child. And we constantly measure that. We measure 4 or 5 things, all right. But this is a key critical parameter. The man who does all this is also here. Krishna Devi, can you stand up for a minute? There he is at the back. He's my eyes and ears of what we do on these initiatives. Amazing effort that's gone in. Year after year, we made sure that the numbers would only improve. How does it improve? We brought the volunteers. We'll talk about it later. The second one is that we think is very important. One is on the CSR front. One message I have for all of you is make sure that you look at the outcome. Effort could be enormous, but what's the outcome is what's important. The second one is that all of us are, fairly successful in some form or other in terms of corporate world. And corporates became successful largely because of processes. You go and replicate the same processes that are there in your corporate world into these social initiatives. A third one, which is important, I think Vikram again talked about it in a while, is volunteerism, Vikram. I really liked what you said, bringing the volunteers. But volunteerism is the next step to it. As I said, we employ about 18,000 people across the world. About 8,000 of them are situated in Hyderabad. And these 8,000 people, it surprised even us when we started talking to them about these initiatives. They all said they want to come and do volunteering work. We therefore give 2 hours off to our employees who want to go and work in our schools every week. They can write in their timesheet saying that they went to the school for volunteering work. And what is the outcome of that? Is 1,000 people that are today volunteering in the schools for us. 1,000 of our highly educated, highly skilled employees who go to these schools week after week to go and spend time with these children for their upliftment. So if you look at these 3 things, they're amazing. Outcome-based, process-driven, and finally say that volunteerism becomes important. That is what I think has become very important in our social initiatives. To give you a flavor of this is that roughly, I can share the number, we are between 500 crores to 600 crores of profit for the last 3 years. So our spend should be between 10 to 12 crores. Our spend has been literally more like 14 crores per year is what we're spending on this initiative. But here is one other catch. If you go back and now do the back of the envelope calculation of what it costs for 2 hours of time for 1,000 engineers every week being given to the society, that's more than 100 crores of money for us. But we think that's a good cause. We certainly make sure that it gets well used thereafter. So that was the second messaging I had on the society part. My third part of it, youth and employment that Murali talked about, which is also very dear to me. The situation is disastrous, nothing short of that. I spend a lot of time in this area. Disastrous that, rightly so, Murali, you also use the same words. Demographic dividend can turn out to be a demographic disaster for this nation if you don't now intervene and make those interventions. I did some work extensively for Government of India way back in 2018 and in 2021 on technical education. I drew up a perspective plan for technical education for this nation. And so therefore, I have all the data with me, a data which is frightening to me. So I don't want to frighten you people, but I'll share a few data points for you. Today, in the undergraduate engineering education in this country, there are 14 lakh seats. 1.4 lakhs is the capacity they created. Randomly giving licenses to the politician or the thug of the place or the businessman who did not have any concept. He says education is another way of churning out cash. Capitation fees are there. And people made it out of it. So there are 1.5 lakh seats. 15 lakhs, 14 lakhs to 15 lakhs. But for the last 5 years, in no single year in this country, we have ever got more than 10 lakhs of students enrolled to engineering education in any single year. So we have actually no more than 66% of capacity utilization, at 2/3 of it. And so which also means, you say, so what, Mr. Reddy? Look at the capex that we have spent. When some of these colleges were being closed, some of the politicians came back to me and said, Mr. Reddy, why don't you revise your report, saying that these are the parameters we need to change. What is the reason, sir? I have took a bank loan. If I don't pay the bank will get to lose the money. Why don't we just make sure that we all join hands to make the bank prosperous? I said, that's not good enough for me. A third thing that we also found is out of this 10 lakhs or 1 million who are graduating, no single year between 2018 and 2022, I have statistics, more than 500,000 people got jobs as soon as they graduated or for 9 months thereafter. Because off-campus, AICT keeps track of these students for 9 months. So which means only 50% of the graduating class, or so-called 1/3 of what we have as capacity, become employable. So the question is why? Why is because there's so much of a gap between what is desired by the organizations, institutions, industry, and what we are churning out today. There's such a wide gap that it's not easy to be fixed. It can be starting with curriculum, it's pedagogy, it's the skill of the teacher, it's a classroom that we have. There are so many of them, including the society. And I think with this type of education, first thing that we need to fix is education. The second one that comes thereafter is, I think Murali talked about, this employment. My numbers are slightly different from Murali's, but fairly close to them, so don't read too much between them. But what I keep saying is, we put 1 million people in the streets of India for jobs every month. We put 10 million people into the streets of India every year, approximately. And given the demographic dividend, we put 100 million people, or 10 crores of people, into streets of India for net new jobs. And these jobs are to be created. And there's enough evidence around the world at this point of time to say that new jobs get created by startups and MSMEs and not large companies. Majority of them, the precise number is 40-60. 40% of the jobs get created by large companies, 60% of the jobs get created by these startups and MSMEs. They border between each other. So therefore, what I think is the key for us, Murali, is creating opportunities in terms of becoming entrepreneurs. And a good symbol of that is where you are all sitting today, the T-Hub. 10 years back, I wrote the Articles of Association for T-Hub. I was the founder, director of T-Hub. And today, it's the largest incubation center in the country. Thank you. Have we done enough? No, not yet. Have we solved the problem? Not yet. I think we have to have many more T-hubs to come by. And only then will we find that this employment problem can be resolved. Sorry, I took a little longer time, but I'll just wind it up by saying the CSR part, the society support part of it, is that not only we did this education, we took it to the next step. I can tell you stories and stories, is that we have loads and loads of computers. So therefore, what are we doing with those computers right now? We use them for adult digital literacy. So as the children go home at 4 o'clock from our schools, thereafter these equipment is used extensively till 8 o'clock in the night. We then have created micro-skilling centers at this point of time for employment. And the biggest one, which is very dear to me, and I have to mention that, is that I went ahead and built a school of innovation and entrepreneurship with a fairly large grant at IIT Hyderabad. This is primarily to promote entrepreneurship. We have an innovation, a TIP in IIT Hyderabad called Technology Innovation Park. We have Technology Research Park. I said if these two have to triangulate together, it had to be an entrepreneurship school. So to sum it up, it's not going to be an effort for an individual. It's not an effort from a corporate. All of us have, as a society, have to size up to this particular challenge that we have in this nation. And I'm very sure that we all together can solve this problem. Thank you very much, Murli, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for listening to me this evening. Thank you.